A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Here in the studio right now, we have Pete coming in from Link Ministry here in Australia. Now, Pete is a representative of this organisation. They work with young people. You may have noticed that the generations are a little different now than they used to be. The technologies of today have taken the minds and the hearts of young people into areas that no one would have ever thought in previous generations. And on the leading edge of reaching these young people is Link Ministry. It's a wonderful ministry started here in Australia, and they provide all kinds of resources and even online gaming support to outreach to the young generation. A week ago, we had their ministry leader by the name of Buckle come on and share with us around what the world is like for young people in what's being called the digital playground, where instead of going out to the local park and playing, a lot of kids are going underneath a pair of headphones and meeting with their friends online, and their social world is being connected to their online presence. But here today to speak with us about the work of Link and about the changing generational dynamic is Pete here, Pete Santos from Link Ministries. We welcome you to 2020.
Good afternoon, Tosh. Is it good afternoon yet? Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well, mate. Thank you. And having been close and being able to see what the work of Link is with the generations, you guys really have gone into what some could consider as being the wild, wild west of the digital space, which is still really being pioneered, isn't it, Pete?
Yeah, definitely. It's such a new space, especially for this younger generation. And for us leaders as well to navigate this space, we're what I like to call trailblazers, because we're going into a space that is still developing, we don't know a lot about, and it's quickly changing. But we find that a lot of young people nowadays are really going into this digital world. They're playing online games, they're in social media, and even that nowadays is still changing, especially here in Australia, right? But they're in the online space, and that's where they find most of their time.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of parents who might be listening to this, you might know the phrase "get off your phone," which is a very common phrase that I heard growing up as well. But it's not as simple as just pausing, because when your world, especially all the people that you know and all of the connections that you make are found online, it's hard to turn that off. So here at Link, we as the Link Ministries Network, we want to adapt and find ways to then tackle that online space. If we cannot get kids offline, how can we bring Jesus into that online space so that the content that they're watching, the things that they're receiving, the things that they're learning about is full of Jesus' love?
Yeah.
And that's our heart at Link, is taking on the digital age and filling it with the love of Jesus.
Pete, I've got a question for you around this digital playground. How does one define the difference or draw a line between digital addiction and the digital playground?
Digital addiction is detrimental. It breaks down neurological things. I studied psychology in university, and we learned a lot about how our neurological processes break down when it comes to spending a lot of time on screen. However, it's hard to avoid that because, again, young people are connecting in that space nowadays. So that digital playground, the difference between that and addiction is that element of connection. When people, what young people call doom scrolling nowadays is when they spend a lot of time on Instagram or TikTok, just watching reels, watching short videos, and it's a constant dopamine hit, but there is no connection there. And that's where a lot of digital addiction starts to build up. That's where a lot of those quick dopamine hits every minute, every 30 seconds, a new video comes up, a new fun aspect or a new fun topic comes up. They get these dopamine hits, and before you know it, time goes by, and you're addicted to your phone. Now, there's a space where the digital playground space is where people come in and then connect. So, for example, me and my friends back in high school, we would play a lot of online games. And because they live in different parts of the country or even another side of the world, we jump online and play a game together, and then we build that connection. And with that, we don't find ourselves very addicted. We actually find it very easy to say, all right, guys, it's time to head off. I'm going to go now. Because the dopamine that we get is from connection. And from that connection, we build relationship. And it's a much healthier way of connecting in the online space.
So what I'm hearing you saying is the digital addiction, it's actually an isolating use of the phone, whereas the digital playground is a place where people, even though you're not meeting in the body, you're meeting in the mind.
Exactly.
And it's that space of meeting in the mind, like we had a gentleman on at the beginning of last week as well from Theos Ministry, Theo.
Yes.
He came in and he shared about how he is using these online lobbies and these online gaming platforms to do Bible studies and to take the Word of God into particularly the playground rather than the addiction space. And as a ministry there with Link, Pete, if you could just share for our readers for our listeners who haven't perhaps heard of Link and the work that you guys do, could you just share with us the scope of the offerings that Link have for young people?
Yeah, so Link Ministries Network, we are a Christian organization, small Christian non-for-profit organization we call ourselves a parachurch organization. We create curriculum videos, curriculum content for schools and churches, and what we do is we create fun YouTube-style videos because a lot of young people connect with YouTube nowadays. So that's the sort of style of content that we make. But we create it and we share the gospel and the word of Jesus through it. We want to encourage kids to learn more about Jesus in a fun and engaging way and also develop and increase their biblical literacy. So a lot of our content, whether they're targeted towards junior primary, senior primary, or junior high school, all of them have an element of fun and faith.
Yeah.
So what we do is we as hosts, I'm one of the hosts for the junior high school show. I intentionally connect with the kids and engage with them by playing games online that they like challenge games or little mini games here and there with my co-host. And what we do is we play a game, but at the same time, we connect that game to a faith or a Bible story. And for example, this term just passed, we did a topic on Wisdom 101.
Right.
So we talked all about gaining wisdom from the Bible, hearing from different stories in the Bible that teach us wisdom, reading a lot of different proverbs, and we get a few speakers to share a word of how this passage has related to them. So, for example, one of my favorite ones was the power of words. So
Right.
I think it was week 3, we talked about wisdom and the power of words, and we talked about that passage in James, I believe, where it says the power of the tongue and how it can be like a match that lights up a whole bushfire, right? And we share that with the young people and say, hey, this passage teaches us to be careful with our words. And we talk about how that relates to our lives. We talk about an anecdote or a story in our lives where words have helped in that way, and how we gain wisdom from the Bible.
Helping you make sense of life, culture, and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
Now, Pete, I want to ask you a question about Link Ministry Network and how you guys are going after the video space with the young people. Why video, mate? Why that particular format?
Well, Tosh, if you look around, all we see now is video and screens. And that in and of itself is not the healthiest thing, and that's another complete topic, but because that is what is available and easily accessible to young people nowadays, it's the space that we want to enter into. Like I said earlier, if we can't systematically get rid of that, then let's just flood that space with Jesus and with love and with connection and in proper ways of using it. So we went into the video space because we understand that young people, especially this next generation, and even my generation, we connect with video very easily. That's a way we consume a lot of our information. That's a way we consume a lot of our entertainment. That's a way that we consume a lot of our connection as well. We so easily send videos of ourselves to our friends, kind of talking about our day. Instead of writing them a text message, sometimes we send them a video vlog or we record an audio piece. It's just so prominent nowadays in this space that we decided to use video as a discipleship tool.
That's really good. I mean, as you say that, you're a generation younger than me, Pete, and I'm having, and I'm sure many of the listeners out there may have even been having memories of young people in the home back in the 80s and in the 90s. There'd be a young person on the telephone talking to their friends across town, chatting about whatever, and the parent would be like, get off the phone, I'm waiting for a special call, I'm waiting for an important call. And now in our generation, as we look at our kids constantly on the phones, we're not having to tell them to get off the landline because they've got that potential for that for that generational
Yes.
connection that may not be quite as understandable from the older generation's point of view. And with that consumption of digital media, particularly around video, you guys are not just sitting back going after, let's say, the web space. You're actually pressing in to the school space as well. Can you share us a little bit about the aim and the drive that Link have toward the classroom?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Link Ministries Network and this the Link Show, or like the Link Youth Show, all started because we had a heart for young people in the classroom. We had a heart for young people to learn about Jesus through school curriculum. A few schools have come to our CEO Buckle and reached out and said, "Hey, can you create a curriculum for us that will help us engage our young people?" Because I don't know about you, but for me, if I received a worksheet at school, it'd be hard for me to engage with it, especially when I'm learning about God and the gospel and faith, which is more than just words on a page. It's more than just head knowledge. It's heart knowledge as well. And you can't teach heart knowledge on a piece of paper. You need to have this interpersonal connection. But a lot of the challenges that teachers face who teach Christian ed or religious ed is that they've never been trained on how to teach matters of faith, matters of Christianity, matters of the Bible. And so a lot of times there's this scrambling on how to work that space out, how to work the classroom out. How do I teach young people about Jesus? So our heart at Link Ministries, and we want to step into that space to make it easier for these educators to have a resource to use. Plug and play is what we use. Well, the term that we call is that they just grab the resource online, they read through it in 10 minutes, and they play the video, or they use the worksheet that we give, which has a lot of different elements to it to help them run that classroom. And through that, they run a more engaging lesson. And because that, again, in school is where a lot of young people spend their time. So we want to flood that space with Jesus as well.
It's like there's a visual language that this generation is partaking of. I think I'm a Gen Xer, and so my generation, we watched a lot of movies. We'd go down to Blockbuster and we'd sort of sit and communicate and consternate about how we're going to watch a movie, and we'd talk and we'd walk and we'd call on the telephone. Mobile phones weren't a thing then, and I'm sure many of our listeners around Australia can relate to where I'm coming from, and even generations before mine. But this young generation are seeing so much and processing so much through the screens of commercialized, of refined communication, that when a data sheet comes, there's another layer of engagement that you guys are pressing into. That's their visual language. They're processing so much more than my generation would. I remember we used to watch these funny shows called Australia's Funniest Home Videos, and you'd sit around and people would come to school the next day and talk about this 1 hour of these crazy little clips that would come in. But now that show's obsolete because you've now got reels on social media, and those kinds of clips are going in left, right, and center. And so the digital space is changing, the visual communication space is changing, and where Link is going into the classroom, Pete, the kind of, let's just walk our listeners through, our Vision family through what they're going to receive when an episode comes to the classroom. Like, what substance is in there, and what elements of the gospel, what elements of connection do Link provide in the work that they do? Yeah,
for sure. So I'll run you guys through a normal episode. That's our main, I guess, product is the episode, the show. So we have our hosts for the Link Show primary. It's two incredible people, Courtney and Miguel, or Cece and Miguel. And the very first few minutes of the show, they engage with the kids. They say, "Hey guys, it's us. It's Cece and Miguel again. It's nice to see you. This is what the show is going to be about." And they build that connection first. They introduce themselves because kids actually relate and build relationship through screen when they see people being authentic. It's a crazy phenomenon. And then they read shout-outs, or they engage with the wider community because schools bring in shout-outs from their children, or teachers write comments on our videos, and we read them out to let young people know, hey, we actually are a community, and we're excited that you guys are part of this as well, learning about Jesus with us. Then we go through a little preach. It's called the Preach Part 1, which is where our preacher, or whoever's on screen, will share a anecdote, and then they'll say, "Oh yeah, by the way, this time in my life, I learned a lot about God through this passage that we're going to learn about next." So after part 1, there's a little game to, again, engage the kids and make it fun, make learning about the Bible and faith fun. And then after that 3-minute game, we'll go into a big preach where we share a Bible story, we share a Bible passage, and we encourage young people to apply that passage into their lives. And at the tail end of it, it's like, hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again, and make sure to comment. They're, again, tailing it with community.
And so there's you used a word there about authenticity. So even though it's impersonal going through the screen, would I be right in saying this generation have a pretty good radar for what is authentic living?
Yes, very much so. They recognize it by the way we speak and by the way we act on screen. It's very telling.
We were talking about the need for authenticity with this generation and the way connection and relationship is really very strong with them. And they are, in a way, connecting through online space, through their devices, in a way that generations previously haven't. And really being authentic as we deliver the gospel in that space is quite powerful and has a great way of cutting through. Those kids who are connecting and desiring to connect, they're trying to get away from isolation because, sometimes life nowadays is so much going on with the family life. The parents can't socialize the kids like they used to, so they're finding their socialization online. As a psychologist, Pete, what can you tell us about the developing mind and its exposure to isolation?
Yeah, for sure. Now, young people, especially in developmental age, they, and just to preface, I'm not a practicing psychologist. I just did a bachelor's in psychology, which I'm very grateful for. But our understanding, the research that I've read through is that young people's minds are very malleable and they're like sponges. Best way to describe them, Tosh, is they're sponges and they absorb so many things.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, when information is so accessible, sometimes that sponge can absorb the wrong things, and that's the dangers of online space. But also, at home, a lot of these things that they're absorbing is because of the busyness of life. Sometimes they absorb that isolation. They absorb that if family and life looks like this, where, people are always away, no one's at home, or people are always busy, that must be what connection means. And so when they're coming into the online space and they actually find people that give them attention, whether that's through game chats, whether that's through even videos, when they watch videos and they see this person on screen actively trying to connect with them using you language, like, hi, how are you doing today? And even though it's through a screen, that language that they're receiving of being talked to, being given attention, they're like, wow, what is this type of connection I've never felt before?
Wow.
And so they jump on that. They jump on all these videos and all these media content that actively speak to them and actively give them attention. Because as content creators are taught to use you language, to use personal language to connect with their audience. Yeah. And so when young people who don't know what healthy relationship looks like receives this sort of connection, they grab onto it. They gravitate towards it. And because they're trying to get away from isolation, they don't have an internal understanding of what isolation is, but they can feel it. Tosh, it's really interesting. Numerous studies show that isolation triggers pain senses in your brain very, very similar to intense physical pain. But unlike physical pain, which we can put a Band-Aid on, stitch up, take painkillers for, you cannot take painkillers for isolation.
Wow.
So what do they look for? Dopamine. Dopamine is just a happy chemical in our brain that gets triggered when something excites us, when something makes us happy, when we feel connected. So when videos come up and they are flashy, they're engaging, they're fun, they're high energy, that triggers dopamine in their brain, which helps them feel less isolated. So they build a connection to their phone.
Yeah. We're here with Pete Santos from Link Ministry Network, and he's sharing with us around the concept of using the online space for digital connection and then discipleship as well. They're doing a great job at Link Ministry Network. I'd really encourage, if there are any parents or grandparents out there, visit the website, which is lmnetwork.com.au. And if you're interested in calling and speaking with Pete, the number here is 1-800-316-316, or you can shoot us a text at 0447 488 316. And those pain sensors, Pete, that you're talking about that are going off in these kids' minds, those are being played to by people who are out there with commercial forces or political agendas.
Yes.
Those forces, they are willingly and knowingly trying to manipulate through that format that's there on the online space. And for the Christian outreach that Link is doing, it's like God is using that to redeem it, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Most definitely. Again, like I was saying, content creators know that and use that, though not always maliciously, but knowingly targeting that region in the brain. They know, oh, my audience is feeling isolated, so I'm going to create content that makes them feel less isolated. And we understand that Link Ministries Network as well. But instead of filling their minds with sometimes just blatant garbage, we actually fill it with the hope and love of Jesus and showing them what true connection really means. And that's through discipleship. That's through, we encourage leaders, we encourage parents through our videos to disciple their young people. In a perfect world, what we want with our videos is that we want parents or leaders or teachers to sit with their children, to watch it, engage with it, meet the young people where they're at.
Yeah.
Meet the young people where they're at and say, okay, if you're engaging with the Word of God through video, let me watch it with you. But then as soon as the video is over, they turn to them and say, hey, let's now talk about what we just learned about Jesus. And there is where the true connection happens, is because we're meeting these young people where they're at, but we're showing them through that second part what true connection really looks like, what relationship and community looks like. It's not through a screen, but it's actually interpersonal and with one another. We're just using media as the tool to, like you said, I like the word that you used, to redeem them from that space, to redeem them from digital addiction and build interpersonal connection. Because young people, why are they addicted to their phones? It's because, again, that's where they find connection. That's where they find people, personalities that they connect with. So they are constantly on their phones looking for these personalities to connect with. But if we actually give them attention and time, if we are intentional with our relationship with them, if we are intentional with our discipleship with them, they won't be looking for that. They won't be searching for that it's hard, but that's just the reality of the world. And that's why we as leaders, as parents, as me, myself, an older sibling, I need to make that time to connect with my siblings. I need to make that time to connect with my young people, so that they're not looking for connection elsewhere.
I have a friend overseas who came to me one time and we were just communicating and talking on the phone, and he said to me, mate, I'm really struggling to connect with my 10-year-old. All he wants to do is bury his head inside of the iPad. And I've got 5 kids, and so we traveled a lot in their younger years and actually did quite a lot of their schooling on the road. So we were maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in trying to understand how to give the kids access to the online space, but then also use it for God's redemptive qualities. And anyway, I learned to play Minecraft just because my kids loved it so much. Mm-hmm. And nightly before bedtime, we'd kind of play together for like 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I found it quite difficult I found it so frustrating. Like, what do I want to play this game for? It's just a silly game, building blocks. But going in there and putting my head into the kids' space and being able to communicate with them about what excited them, I found that built so many powerful bridges to them.
Yes.
Then when my friend says to me, hey, I'm having struggle dealing with my kid, all he wants to do is have his head inside of his iPad. I said, what's he doing inside the iPad? And the guy goes, I don't know, he just sits there looking at it. And I'm like, well, he's a smart kid. His mind isn't doing nothing. Why don't you join him and ask him to show you what's happening inside his online world? And so the dad did that. He went and sat with his kid, bought himself a tablet to sit with his kid, and they started playing games together. And sometime later, he came back to me and he said, that was the best thing I did. Like, I didn't realize how smart the kid was and how skilled he was in this very difficult to do thing. And building those barriers to understand, building those bridges, I should say, breaking down the barriers to understand what's going on in the minds of kids parents, the Bible tells us that, we are to serve the least of these. We're to humble ourselves and be a slave to the weakest. And in our homes, just that point of connection with the kids, it can have a powerful effect. And now my kids are, they're adults. I've got a great relationship with them. And it's not because I'm smart. It's because I learned that, hey, I can become a servant to them. I could learn the language that they speak. What encouragement would you give to parents, Pete, that are out there and listening in right now about perhaps being the one who breaks down the walls and getting involved just to see what the kids are doing?
Yeah, no, exactly right. Meet them where they're at. That is my biggest advice. Just meet them where they're at. These young people, they don't have as deep of an understanding as we do, right? Sometimes what's in front of them is all they know and all they understand. So if we meet them where they're at, for example, like you said, you were playing Minecraft with your children, and then you felt connected with them because you met them in their space. Even though we might not always understand where they're at, if we just meet them there, if we just try playing the game, try looking over your child's shoulder, sitting down with them and say, hey, what are you watching? What are you being aware of that? Now, I remember one of the ways that I was able to connect with my younger brother when he was growing up. He's also what we call an iPad kid, right? He would watch Thomas the Tank Engine train videos where he'd watch people build these elaborate railroads and tracks, and he would try to replicate it. And I sat with him at one point, this was a while ago, and I said, oh, what are you watching? And he was watching this video of someone building a railroad. And I said, oh, that's cool. Hey, why don't we do that together? And so we got out his tracks, we got out his trains, he put that iPad down, and we had an hour of playing Thomas the Tank Engine railroad building games. When I met him where he was at, instead of telling him, hey, let's just do something else instead, but when I sat down with my brother and looked at what he was doing, what he was engaging with, and I engaged with him and then showed him a different way, or said, hey, let's expand this, let's broaden this. Let's not be limited to just engaging with the iPad, but let's take what you know, take what you're seeing right now, and let me show you a cooler thing to do. He enjoyed that a whole lot more.
So I guess what you're doing in creating this material for kids, I don't guess, it's pretty obvious. What you're doing is you're creating a platform for parents and kids to bring let's use your analogy, their train tracks together.
Yes.
It's not just content for kids, it's a generationally unifying content that the parents can get inside the headspace of the kids and also the headspace of the lessons as well. And so, Pete, when the parents are going to be discipling their kids or just sitting with the kids watching the show, what's going to happen when they start outreaching to other people? Let's say, little Johnny is in the home and he watches the content with dad and he feels good about that. And he wants to invite, Lucas from around the corner to come and be a part of that video watching. How does Link facilitate little Lucas getting into a congregation?
Yeah, well, we first build that connection, and then we encourage the parents, we encourage the leaders to then build connection with little Lucas's parents and invite them to church. If little Lucas doesn't go to church already, what we've seen actually is really cool, because I've led a lot of youth and children's outreach, is that one of my youth boys would invite a friend who's never been to church before. Yeah. And when I would meet with that friend's parents, they're so excited that they're at a church event, a church community, building relations. It's actually not that hard. So once you've built that relationship with them already, and if little Lucas and little Johnny are already friends, and we invite little Lucas to watch Link Ministries Network video, to engage with the Word of God through something fun and engaging like video, and then we invite them to church and say, hey, little Johnny loves hanging out with little Lucas. Let's get Johnny and Lucas to church together. A lot of times, some parents are actually very happy to agree to that, because what they see is their young person, is their child building connection, building relationship, building a friend. And why would they stop their child from making a friend? It's they fall in love with that idea that their child is building a friendship, building a relationship, building community, and it's actually really cool. Yeah.
So when it comes to the online space and parents being involved, what other offerings does Link Ministry have other than just those more formalized video? Because I know you do live stuff as well online.
We do. We're trying to build on live stuff, live streaming, us playing games and inviting parents to log in with their children to watch these live stream with us and to comment. We're building into that space. But we also, a lot of our resources are free, and you're also very free to come and contact us. A lot of our information is on our website, lmnetwork.com.au, and you can also check our YouTube videos at The Link Show on YouTube channel. But a lot of the resources that we have, including all the lesson plans and all the worksheets, they're actually available for you to access. And we're also very available for you to access. You can reach out and with your personal questions, with your personal comments, or things that you might be wondering about when it comes to connecting with young people. And it doesn't go through a middleman. It goes straight to us. We connect with you directly. So if you ever want to access any resources, want to access any of our videos, or even just want to access information on how to disciple young people, information on how to connect with young people, how to get young people to church, if you're a leader, a parent, or a school teacher, reach out. Just reach out to us because we're there. We're there for you.
You've got a support for the parents.
We've got a support, yes.
And so if you briefly mentioned a moment ago that you play games online with the kids. Now, you quickly glossed over that. And a guy in my generation who hears that, there's a piece of my mind that says, that sounds totally brainless. Right. We'll get together and watch games being played. Just share with us the fun that happens with the kids in that online space of playing games together.
Let me turn and swap that question around. Do you guys enjoy going to sports stadiums and watching live sports?
Oh.
Do you guys enjoy watching men play or women play sports, and do you cheer them on?
Absolutely.
How would you feel if you got to go on court with them and chat with them while they're playing?
Okay, you're bringing me in now. Yeah, I'm hearing it.
If I met LeBron James or Steph Curry and they were like, hey, come courtside and watch my game, I'd be like, yes, I'm in, I'm there. Let me grab my popcorn. And if he says, while I'm playing, I'm going to chat with you as well and get to know you, my mind will be blown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of these young people, especially if they're already connected with them and they enjoy the way that these online personalities are playing and, just hanging out with them and they enjoy their personality, they become a fan. And so if they become a fan of someone who's intentionally connecting with them, of course they'd want to be a part of it. This person who I see on screen, who I think is really cool, really fun, wants to get to know me, and then even deeper, wants to get to know my faith, wants to share the love of Jesus with me, wants to pray for me right there and then while we're playing games, wants to get to know about who me, Peter, is. Man, that's really cool. And that's why online gaming, and especially a lot of this live streaming, a lot of people are gravitating towards it because there's this really cool person that wants to chat with me and will let me chat with them.
And that online space, it's a live conversation. It's not a pre-recorded conversation.
It's a live conversation.
So the conversation that's pre-recorded in the videos, there's the element of authenticity that you want to create for connection to the kids and bringing them through the Bible content. But the gaming side of things, that's more fun than informational.
Yes, it's more fun than it is informational because community should be fun.
Yeah.
Connecting with people should be fun. And learning about Jesus should also be fun and engaging.
So that's like the hour of playtime in the middle of the school day at lunch, as opposed to all of the lessons that are being played there.
That's it, exactly it, yeah.
And so going forward, Pete, with parents that might be listening or grandparents or people who have young people in their world, getting involved in their online space, taking the leap into that space, what are some of the challenges that kids face in being understood about what they're doing online?
I think a lot of the challenges is that, especially as well for my parents growing up, understanding that the online space it's not something you can turn on and off like a device.
Right.
And it's more so a community room, a meeting hall that you enter into and walk out of. But that doesn't mean that what's happening inside the community room is stopping sometimes. And that's why a lot of people want to stay there because they don't want to miss out. And so I think a lot of the jokes that are coming out online nowadays are like, memes is parents will ask their children to pause the game, but children will be like, Mom, I can't pause the game. I don't know how to pause. You can't pause the game. But it's because, it's a continuous thing. And it's because it's a room that people enter, and there will always be people in there. There will always be activity happening.
So in the father's mind or in the mother's mind, Well, you could pause Mario Kart
Yeah.
or you could pause GoldenEye. Why can't you pause your game?
Yeah, pretty much.
But you can't pause 100 people that are all playing simultaneously around the world.
No, not at all. But also, that's not a reason to then just spend 24/7 online.
Yeah.
Because that's how the world is connecting nowadays. But there is a better way to connect.
And there is a time, obviously, parents have got to be the parent and say,
yes.
okay, enough. And sometimes the kids don't like getting off. But having something to bring the children to, rather than tell them just to get off, that's a different space. That every parent has to do the heavy lifting with.
Yeah.
And for the parents that are out there in our listening audience, in our Vision family around Australia, Pete, we've only got a couple of minutes left. What would be a couple of thoughts that you would have about, with your training as a psychologist and being so close to this generation and where the cutting edge of their thinking is? What would be a couple of thoughts that you would share with our parents and grandparents, uncles, aunties, about where the kids are at and how to understand them as they connect amongst each other?
Yeah, of course. And I don't think it takes much to know that young people nowadays are becoming more inquisitive. They're becoming more curious. They're also questioning a lot more because of how much information is out there, how many things that they're consuming. They're becoming more inquisitive about all these things. Is this authentic? Is this real? Is this the right way to go about life? Is this how I should live? When nowadays, when there is hardly any objective truth in society, when your truth is not my truth and my truth isn't your truth, that's how the world works nowadays. Young people are being thrown into that, and social media is throwing them into that. And their minds that don't have this deep maturity, this deep understanding, they're filled with all this information that the world tells is true, but it's also full of contradicting things. So they're like, okay, so what is true? And they look to their immediate leaders. They look to their immediate parents. They look to the immediate church leaders, teachers. But when they're not available, they look to the only place that they know how to enter and access, which is online. And online is already the place where so many of this contradicting truths exist. So they're even more confused. So as parents and as leaders, my encouragement to you is be involved in your young people's questions. Don't brush off a question or a thought that they have. Know what they're listening to, know what they're reading, and encourage them in that space and show them the truth that Christ gives us. Encourage them to, with our more mature understanding, let's show them a better way. Let's meet them where they're at, and let's tell them, hey, this is cool, but there's something better. Let's not shy away from deep conversations. We might think that children don't understand deep topics, but they really do. They're very inquisitive minds. They're very deep thinking minds, because it's just cool that they're like that. Their brains are sponges, and when we feed truth into their minds, then truth will come out into their lives, into their actions as well.
Taking that time to be involved in the forming of their worldview as well, Pete, hey? And sitting with them in their different little stages of development, but they do pass quickly from that teenage year up to the adult year. It happens very quickly, and those little investments that are made along the way of speaking, hey, this is what my experience with God has been, this is what my truth that I've learned about God is such a powerful thing to impart, right?
Yes, it very much, it really is. And again, when we're authentic about our own experiences, and we don't try to dumb it down, or we don't pretend that, sometimes when we're vulnerable and authentic, our young people see that and they respond to that.
Brilliant. Our guest in conversation here today has been Peter Santos from Link Ministry Network. You can find out more about the ministry or lay a hold of their free web resources at lmnetwork.com.au. And why don't you take some time with your young person and pull up their YouTube channel, which is simply The Link Show, and sit down and have a look at it with them. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Pete. It's been a real pleasure having you with us.
Thank you so much, Tosh. Appreciate it.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.